Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. You're watching the Friday show that's actually live. I'm here with Josh Thanos.
Hey.
And we are here to answer your questions and recap the week in watches. Now, before we jump any deeper into the show, I want to say, first of all, we've launched our new Talking Hands reviews. Our Channel 3, as we like to call it, Watch You Want Reviews, is strictly the kind of hands-on reviews that made me a hero in my own mind with my camera, phone taped to the back of a chair. Well, they're back, they're pro, and honestly, we're launching all marquee watches, so if you missed the little 6-minute narratives of the watches we've got and the watches I want, Watch You Want Reviews, subscribe. It's there for you guys. You demanded it.
Nice. I got a few watches for you to review that just came in today.
I'm very excited about that because this guy brings in great stuff. Like, he's broken my heart so many times when he sold them out, but then he brings in new ones for me, and I fall in love all over again.
A little special like that.
Okay.
Sneak peek at that.
So, coming attractions, Blake Simon from Oris Straps.
Yeah.
Started his own custom strap company. Josh, tell us a little bit about their straps, what they do.
Well, just custom strap company. They do a lot of AP. I know they do Panerai and a lot of different ones. They're like, the camo is like their thing, right? Different color camo. And it's a local company. Started here in Hollywood, I believe.
Yeah, they're interesting guys because they're kind of our age, and they got into the watch industry from a completely different station than we did. So we like to compare notes, but they're going to be on the show. We're also going to be giving away some Oris straps, which is kind of fun. You guys asked for giveaways. Yeah. I ran out of Baselworld and SIHH swag, so that's what's next.
Yeah, I got a few Oris straps, and I think, they're friends of OJ, from what I understand, yeah.
From the old days.
Oh, yeah.
And
a lot of fun.
We open a new chapter next week, but Faylene is out today, so please excuse any technical difficulties we may encounter in the process of this broadcast. Believe me, when she said she was going to take the Friday, my heart stopped, so forgive any indiscretions between us.
I can't believe we're on air, honestly.
Honestly, she manages the 7-second delay. You guys didn't know about that, did you?
That's right.
Okay, so...
Bleep.
So this or that, Josh, this is a conundrum that cuts to the heart of one of the main dilemmas that watch collectors, veteran and new to the space, face. But the idea that you could take one very serious established watch brand and select a single reference, or you could buy a literal collection for the same price of lower stature, potentially lower grade watches. Not bad watches, just lower stature and not quite as deluxe in detail, fit, and finish.
Sure.
So we're comparing, and you're going to give me your views on this.
Right.
I'm shutting my mouth now. No Date Sub 114060 or Longines Legend Diver, Oris Divers 65, Rado Captain Cook 2017 limited edition reissue, and a 7 Friday S101 with clear nylon case. You can have all of those or the No Date Sub C.
So we're asking, is less truly more?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, or is more or less? Or...
Yeah, to cop my old hero, Mies van der Rohe. But here's the thing. Price-wise, it's going to be just over $7,800 for those 4 watches, and it's going to be $7,500 retail for the Rolex.
Sub. Okay. So, very interesting. I would say it comes down to how far you are into your collecting life, right? So it starts off... Like we talked about, I was on camera with Fed, and we talked about my collecting experience. So I'm in the more watches, less money stage of my collecting, right? And I'm moving into consolidating and more into like occasional watches, right? But when it comes to this selection, I personally, if you're asking me, I'm going for the 4 watches for $7,800. The reason being is Legend Diver, love the watch.
Okay.
Oris Diver 65, great watch, though I would personally sub it out for an Oris Aquas because that'll give you the same effect as the No Date Sub for the most part. It's going to have the ceramic bezel diver. Essentially, you get a date with that also, and you'll save yourself a few bucks. So that you can switch that out. Rado Captain Cook, cool watch.
Okay, so the new Rado Captain Cook, probably the cheapest watch other than the 7 Friday in there. And I don't mean to use the word cheap as a pejorative. I just mean
least expensive. At
something like $1,800 it's going to be an accessible watch.
But it's probably worth that. And then the 7 Friday is cool. I have a 7 Friday as well. So I would, if you're asking me this or that, I'd pick the more watches for the same dollars than the No Date Sub. For the other reason would be that the No Date Sub's always going to be around. It's not going to be hard to find. So if you ever want to go from the 4 watches into a sub, you could most likely sell at least 3 or 4 of them on the private market without any problem.
Okay, now let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Let's invert this theory.
Go for it.
Okay, you buy the sub or you buy the 4 references. The 7 Friday, you may not even be able to resell that at anything like a recognizable percentage of its value. So if you took those 4 watches, owned them, enjoyed them, and then tried to resell them, would you be better off just getting the sub? Let's say you like to swap watches, even if you're early in your collecting career. Going to market with a no-date sub C, are you going to get more money back in total than if you sold those 4 lesser watches? I mean, would you literally bring back less as a package for those 4, even if you sold them individually?
Well, yes, and the reason is not only is the resale a little tougher on the lower end watches, though watches that go in sell between private parties tend to actually be not that hard to sell. So
Okay.
7 Fridays, you'd actually be surprised, actually sell pretty well. So it's a $1,400 retail.
Yeah.
I know for a fact I've seen the watch sell for $800 as a pre-owned piece in good condition. So I don't think any of these watches. So you're paying. So we got a $2,300 reference, a $2,300 reference, an $1,800 and a $1,400. I'd say that leave town money on all of them except the Rado. I have no experience in selling Rado, but I'd say the Legend Diver. You can get close to $1,000 for that one just easily.
Yeah.
Not trying too hard. Same thing for the Oris, maybe a little bit less. In the 7 Friday, I think you can get north of $500. So to answer your question, yes, you're going to probably net less as a package for a couple reasons. Now you have four watches, 4 different straps to deal with, service on each of those, plus costs associated with selling each of them as opposed to the sub.
And that's an important point, because it's not like you can just turn around a watch you've worn and enjoyed for 3 years and sell it on the original strap and expect anyone would pay, as though that were a pre-owned watch in mint condition. I mean, some people wear watches very lightly, but if you're going to use them, you're going to wind up having to, if you want to reconstitute the original accessory set, you will have to spend a little bit of money. Now, I guess it's interesting because for me, I would go with the iconic reference. I'd go with the Sub C.
Right.
All of those watches that I mentioned are strong brands in their individual model lines, within their individual corporate hierarchies. For Longines, the Legend Diver is probably their marquee model in terms of recognition. The Rado Captain Cook has generated more buzz for that brand than any other watch they've released in the last 10 years. And the Oris Diver 65, likewise, over the last 3 years.
Top of the top there.
So it's not to say that generally Longines, Rado, and Oris are going to punch this far above their weight in terms of resale value. Generally, you'd lose on 3 from those companies versus the sub, but because they are great models within their line, you think you could get out pretty easily.
Yeah, and also you have to take into account the fact that you're going to have one watch that you'd essentially wear every single day, so you're going to get more use out of that one watch as opposed to having 4 watches that you can wear in different situations, so there's some value to that as well.
Okay.
The no-date sub is great. It's very versatile. It's just, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a boring watch. If it's your only one, it's a little boring. And also, it's a lot of money to put into one. So also think about risk involved too.
True.
So of course you can get insurance, right? But insurance doesn't always pay out the full amount, and they don't always pay. So you got to think about, are you comfortable walking around with your entire watch collection on your wrist at all times? So a lot of different things to take into account. We always talk about this, what's better than that? There's so many different factors, and it comes a lot of times down to the person. But I think that for me in my collecting, in my timeline right now, I like to spread out my collection a little bit as opposed to consolidate. And I'm sure, and I have many collectors who've been doing it for a long time, and then they decide, all right, I have 100 watches. I want to have 10 good watches. Consolidation. That tends to be like a second, third, or fourth step in your collecting lifestyle.
So in other words, if you want to have the collection, if you want to have the rotation, go with the multiple watches. For me personally, I'm a fan of the classics.
Yeah.
I would say go with the no-date sub. And remember, we're talking buying new. We're talking paying list for everything here. So obviously, if you were to buy them pre-owned, you're going to find different prices for different models among those we've mentioned, which changes the equation completely.
So I think we've decided there's probably no wrong answer here is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think just be confident in the decision you take and have no regrets. This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
So new news. Okay, huge shout out. The new news. And huge congratulations to Watch You Want Live alumnus, Mr. Bill Barner. He actually appeared and shared his watch collection. He was our first featured collector. And he asked me, and you asked me, as a viewership to recommend affordable vintage watches. In one show, I called out the Sakura D500 propeller dial jump hour from the 70s. This is Sakura, the company that was originally owned by Ernst Snyder before he bought Breitling. So Bill actually went out and he bought the watch. So he sent us a wrist shot.
Yeah, I saw it.
I have to say, the watch still looks fantastic. It's a fantastic piece from a value standpoint because you get real, like, horological interest in a jump hour. Even if it's a pin lever, it's just a cool thing.
Oh, it really is a great complication on a watch.
And vintage charm with this one.
Yeah, that thing's really cool. I mean, it's totally weird,
Funky case.
It's a South Florida watch. It's,
Yeah.
That watch. Actually, I think I met Bill for the first time a week or two ago. He was in the office.
Yeah.
And so it was a pleasure and a super cool watch, man.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, Bill. We want to have you back. I have to say, this particular acquisition deserves an encore performance, so I want to have you back for a sequel to your collector's discussion. And actually, his wife is also very interesting. She has a collection of her own, and she's a judge.
Yes.
So both of the Barners are great for stories, and we might have both of them on.
You know what? I think that'd be a great show. Can I sit in and watch?
Absolutely. We have a live studio audience now. Josh,
I will be it.
thank you, Josh.
No problem.
No applause. Hold the applause.
Okay.
Okay, so now Bill actually eloquently surmised the relationship between Sakura and Breitling in the following terms. Now, this guy's a former prosecutor, so he knows how to stand and deliver. I had to share this with you. I look at Sakura as the mother company of contemporary Breitling. I look at the vintage pre-1979 Breitling as the father of contemporary Breitling. They got married in 1979, but the mother lost her name in the marriage. That's a perfect summation of the complex series of copyright transfers and property kind of transfers between the last of the Breitling family, the Snyder family, Sakura, and Breitling SA.
Wow, that's the guy who's like busting the curve in the literary class, every literary class he takes, and I'd like to see his SAT scores, man. That was
the guy who aced analogies on the SAT.
Unbelievably eloquent. That was fantastic.
So now, Josh, a little bit of additional new news. We had a piece of news relating to a brand that's very dear to my heart, and we covered it a little bit in a previous episode, but I want to hear your reaction because Julien Tournaire ascended to the CEO's position at Zenith, and
Interesting.
You know, like you, he has a lot of experience in Far Eastern retail and Far Eastern, basically business dealings, because he was with Vacheron Constantin in the Far East, building their brands, building their boutiques.
Like a decade, right?
For a long time. He was with Vacheron for 17 years total.
Yeah.
Now, he replaces industry veteran and corporate overlord Jean-Claude Biver, who was the interim CEO since January.
Right.
I suspect he had influence prior to that, though. But is it fair to say that between the two of us, coming from media and sales, that there is probably a bigger gap in our professional assessment of Zenith watches than any other brand?
Yeah.
By that I mean a divergence between history and product quality, which I love to death and which collectors love to death, and residual value and marquee and market appeal.
Yeah, this is
divergent.
like whenever we talk about the how a watch is valued in the market, and we always say that has nothing to do with the quality of the watch. It's always going to be, marketing and distribution. This is the example right here, right? And I think this is a great move. Biver can't be spread too thin. I mean, the guy's got unbelievable energy. There's nothing he can't do wrong. He's always doing everything right.
Yeah.
But it's good that he put Tournaire into this position. I think a lot of experience with Vacheron. I think he grew with the South Pacific.
He was with a couple of different Vacheron branches, everywhere from the Far East to the United States.
Right.
And he was with Raymond Weil before that.
I saw that too, yeah.
So he's a guy who's been sales focused, and
Yes.
you're sales focused, and you can speak to the unfortunate lumps that the Zenith brand takes in terms of resale, in terms of ability to sell them at list. It's just a brand that struggled with identity,
Yeah.
and it struggled to convince people outside the watch nerd world that it's worth its salt. And
Right.
like I said, there couldn't be a bigger gap between what I think of Zenith and the way you evaluate one when you're looking to buy it.
Right. Well, I mean, so whenever we see Zenith, we say, okay, great watch, not worth much, unfortunately, and that's kind of where it falls. You can see the resale values on those watches, and they have literally nothing to do with the quality of their watches, because they make you can appreciate these watches.
Zenith is a jewel. Honestly, it is a jewel, and it's a Swiss national treasure.
I mean, you can literally have a collection of only Zenith and have watches that look nothing alike, but all high quality. quality, from dive watches to pilots watches to dress watches, all within the same under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. I think that they don't really have an identity. Bavair is good at giving an identity to a brand. That did it with Hublot, is doing it with Tag Heuer. So that is hopefully something that they'll do with Zenith, because they need it badly.
Yeah, and here's how I feel. I feel like Bavair, and I hate to say this, but he went to Tag Heuer and he did what was easy. Vintage reeditions, which were nice, but simple, kind of a facile way of drumming up from some sales in this market.
Yeah.
Steel, vintage recreations, okay. And then he kind of created a mini Hublot.
Yeah.
With some models like the Carrera 01, at which is an appealing watch and it's well priced. But I really don't feel like Zenith can be the intermediate Hublot. Like you've got Hublot Major, you've got Hublot Minor with Tag, plus some vintage type watches. I don't feel that Zenith can just be the middle market version of that. They're supposed to have high complications. They're supposed to be innovators. They're supposed to do things that Tag and Hublot separately wouldn't do. And they're really the only. I mean, granted, yeah, the vintage thing has brought in some of the, the auction circuit and faddish blog crowd. But realistically, I don't feel like Tag has a hardcore following. I feel like vintage Heuer has a hardcore following.
Without a doubt.
Zenith has a hardcore following. So if you had to give 2 points of advice, or even one big point of advice to Julien Tournaire going forward, from a sales standpoint, what does he have to do to resurrect the brand?
Well, I'd say that their price points are usually pretty logical. I'd say there's nothing that's like massively overpriced except that the fact that I'd say maybe cut down distribution a little bit, just tighten it up. Focus on some core models that you want to represent the brand, as opposed to having everything across the board. Like the new Defies, I was looking at them again, and I realized that they look a lot like the Hublot Classic Fusion. So again, try to find an identity. Focus on some core models that the brand can be represented by.
Yes.
And then work from there. You can have dress watches, you can have dive watches and pilot watches and everything across the board, but pick some models that are going to be the models that we can sell, and make sure that people aren't discounting them like crazy.
Sure.
And build some value from there. And I think that that's the way to kind of pull yourself out of a nosedive.
So they have to basically tighten the belt, make fewer references, pare down the catalog, do a little bit of what Audemars Piguet did in 2012, or heck, even what Tag sort of did after 2015. Sell fewer watches, get higher prices for them. And here's the other thing I have to say. Zenith needs an ad campaign. Like, when was the last time you saw in the real world, that is outside the remarketed blogs and news sites that you read in the watch world, when was the last time you saw a Zenith ad in the real world?
Yeah.
Like, I can't ever remember a billboard. I can't remember ever seeing anything on TV.
Yeah. Well, because they don't have the iconic Zenith watch that everyone thinks of. And that's part of the problem. With Breitling, you have that. With Tag, you have that. With Rolex, you have that.
Yeah.
With every other, Royal Oak, with AP, you just don't have an iconic piece. I think that's what it starts with, and then you can branch out. And now you can be the pilot's watch company, or the dive watch company, or the complication watch company. Give yourself an identity.
Okay, so now let's jump into a question that's in our chat box right now. I want to answer a couple of questions from the field before we jump to our next talking points. By the way, I have to give a shout out to my colleague Rafael Dominguez, who is handling the switcher tonight and bringing up our graphics. Rafael is doing awesome work.
You're doing almost as good as Faline.
Okay, so this is from Ansar B. He's asking, why do you think diver watches are the most popular kinds of watches? Josh, attack that, because you've bought and sold probably 1,000 dive watches.
Yeah, it's just they're super cool. No, because they're tool watches, they tend to always be made of stainless steel. They tend to all have a similar look. They're hardy, and there's dive watches from very low end all the way to super high end, and they all have a similar look and feel. I think that's part of it. And the modern age of watches, I guess, kind of started with dive watches, right? You have the Rolex Submariner, which became like
the archetype for the watch.
Right, the modern tradable watch. So I guess that's probably the reason. And just, look, so here. Let's see how many dive watches that we can find on this table.
Yeah, I mean, strictly
I guess we
speaking,
can
the
have two
purists
here.
are going to scream, "Oh, it has to have a rotating bezel, 6425." But the bottom line is, the dive watch. If we just zoom out a little bit and expand that to the sports watch,
Yeah.
that is the U.S. luxury watch market. And I'm going to be honest, although European tastes are a little bit more eclectic and
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more developed down the line, they still love sports watches and they still love dive watches too. So I would say, just to address that, like you said, it's a watch you can wear anywhere because so many took their cue from the Rolex. And what the Rolex got right was a relatively compact size, a readable dial, versatile and basically serviceable stainless steel case. There's nothing in there that's like a one-trick pony,
Right.
too delicate to use daily, or too bombastic
Well,
to wear with a suit.
Whenever we talk about things holding value, we say the less polarizing, the better, right? So
Yeah.
the more buyers for the watch, the better in regards to resale value, and that's you're describing a dive watch. And then watches that hold value tend to get traded, so those are the watches that become more in demand, and so on and so on.
Okay, so a lot of interesting questions coming in, and we have a couple of interesting questions from the field. But first, I want to attack a new watch that was interesting to me, because I'm a watch nerd and I follow such things. There's a new watch, and this is in conjunction with the opening of a new Citizen flagship store in Ginza, which, if you recall, the Blue Oyster Cult, Godzilla, is exactly the part of Tokyo he was stomping. And so this is the Campanola Kinron Mechanical. Now, it's a limited edition of 200 pieces,
Okay.
A Rushi lacquer dial,
Right.
and this is a Le Jouperet Swiss automatic movement. So priced at an incredible 1,200,000 yen, which is about 11,000 US
$40. Oh, okay,
dollars.
11,000.
It continues the 2015 tradition of Citizen's Campagnola mechanical series watches with the Japanese build, Japanese regulation, and the Swiss movement.
Sure.
Interesting watch. I think if you're a fan of kind of back catalog timepieces, Campagnola, you've bought and sold a couple of these. It's kind of like Citizen's version of Grand Seiko.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And they do have a following, a cult following, and highly complicated watches in regards to other Swiss brands. Very, very affordable. They do trade. They don't hold a ton of value on the trade, but at 200 pieces with this special dial, maybe this one is something that would. And I think you're getting a value because, like we always say, the smaller brands kind of have to punch up, right? They have to add a little bit.
fact.
They have to give you more in order for you to spend that even like less money.
And it's a relatively new endeavor, Campanola. They only started launching the series in 2000, and they launched with the Grand Complication, which was a very cool watch. Quartz, but watchmaker built, watchmaker finished, and perpetual calendar, chronograph, moon phase, electronic minute repeater, and it was a bold offering. And they're kind of cool in the U.S. because, unlike Grand Seiko, which now has an official U.S. presence. They've got an office, they've got a marketing agency, they've got boutiques. Citizen Campanola right now is like what Grand Seiko was in the U.S. in the 90s. It's almost like the guy who had like the R34 Skyline GTR before they officially imported Skylines. And it's like,
Right-hand
man,
drive, right?
how'd you get this into the country?
Travis.
The import authorities are going to come get you.
Oh, yeah.
So I liked them, and Citizen has put together quite a Swiss holding since 2012.
Yeah, I think they're doing well. Like we do see more and more people asking for these watches. Not to the level of some of the other brands, but it's definitely on the uptick.
And Budget Watch Guy is saying he's part of the cult of Campanola. Budget Watch Guy, good on you. Those are cool watches and
Heck yeah.
beautifully made.
Yeah.
The lacquer on this one is worth the price of admission, 200 pieces, so you may have to make a trip to Tokyo. I don't see any reason you shouldn't do that.
Let's
That
go.
could be a ton of fun, especially now.
Make
This
it
is
back by
important.
Monday.
Yeah, well, okay. Can the Concorde come out of retirement?
Right?
We'll
Make it
charter
back by dinner in that regard. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, from a business standpoint, this is interesting to me because this is a flagship store that's more than just Citizen. They're actually combining all of their global brands into this store. So that includes their Prothor holdings, so La Jouperet and its Arnold & Son brand. That includes their Frédéric Constant, Alpina, Atelier de Monaco, Swiss brands.
Yeah.
All of this available in a multilingual boutique that's going to sell every single brand, and it's really they say the prototype for something they're going to roll out globally.
Cool.
That's not really, other than Swatch's like Tourbillon boutiques.
Right.
That's not something you see where a company owns a boutique and puts all of its brands into it.
Right, yeah, you see that from outside companies like a Tourneau, a Mayors, or like even like a Gutberg, right? That's what you see. So it's an interesting concept, and I think there's more of a push towards brands trying to sell more watches,
From fewer doors.
from way fewer doors and in-house, so they can have a control over the discounting and things like that.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. I think.
Interesting thing. Follow this space. So definitely look into the watch if you're so inclined. I would be. And also from a business standpoint, ... This is one to follow. Now, I have so many requests for wrist shots here. And frankly, because you've seen both of these watches, I'm going to give you the wrist shot. It's my Duomet white gold, the 2010 limited series at 200, Foudroyant. Dual barrel, dual movement, one regulator. I love this watch to pieces. That was my 30th birthday watch to myself. Josh?
Here, you do mine.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just better at modeling the hand
Yeah,
thing.
you are, man. You're good.
I'm like that guy from Zoolander. I'm a hand jockey. We're a different breed.
Blue steel.
The 1974 Bulova catalog. I know those hands. Okay, so what are we looking at, Josh?
This is a Panerai 380. So what you see here is the manual wind movements. I think it's a 72 or a 48-hour, power reserve. It's basic time and sub-seconds. This is my first Swiss watch. I've talked about it on the show before. Probably my favorite watch.
Your first Swiss watch and like your 80th strap, right?
Oh, yeah. This is a Panatime strap, man. I love this thing. And, yeah, I do have at least 40 straps at home.
And guys, that's arguably what Panerai should be historically, even in their combat days. The whole thing was a Panerai modified tool watch with someone else's movement inside of it. And frankly, that one's a chronometer. It's a noble timepiece. That's old school, and I love it for that.
Yeah. And I saw earlier, somebody asked how quickly I can change a strap on this. And even though I probably shouldn't be doing so, I can change it in traffic. So they make
Not that he's ever done that.
Never done that before. But no, it's really, really quick and easy. You just need a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, 4 screws. You don't take them all the way out. Pop out the lugs, swap the strap, screw them back down, and you're good to go. So I can go from dive strap to rubber strap for the beach, and then a rubber strap to like a black alligator for dinner in under 30 seconds.
So I'm going to give you a bonus wrist shot just because you guys were asking. We were holding you up, and you've seen these watches before. I'm going to show you something cool. This is a Rolex Day-Date double quick set, 6-digit reference generation with a combination of, let me see if I can get this camera to stop fighting me. Yep, 36 millimeters rose gold. This watch with the meteorite dial has that awesome Widmanstätten pattern. Now, of course, the meteorite with its metallic grain creates that incredible pattern stabilized by Rolex. That doesn't endure in nature. That's something Rolex creates. I believe they're still using pieces of a Gambian meteorite that they harvested a long time to make these dials.
Gambian meteorite.
And this is just an awesome watch because from about the early 1970s through roughly the year 2000 when they launched the 6-digit Day-Dates, there was no rose gold option. So for that period of decades, watches like this just weren't made. You don't have to be into gold, you don't have to be into diamonds, and you don't have to be into meteorite to dig this watch. Honestly, I'm not really into any of the three.
What about the clasp here? That's super cool, man. It's an oyster bracelet with a hidden clasp.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's super cool, man. And you can't call this president because it doesn't have the presidential bracelet, right?
That's right. It's got the crown clasp is what it's got. It's got the crown clasp with the oyster bracelet. This is a fun piece.
Heck yeah, man.
It's a little bit of an exotic, but then again,
badass.
every once in a while on Safari, one will see an exotic.
Yeah.
And we are on Watch Safari tonight. So questions coming in from the field. We've got one along the lines of John R., who has a current collection. Raph, we're going to jump to John R.'s collection real quick, and then we're going to jump back to Risky Business from Vacheron. So his current collection includes a 1988 birth year, date just 36, two-tone. He's got it on a Jubilee bracelet, black dial, first watch and most worn. He's got a Tag Heuer Classic 2000 Sports. This is a daily driver type tool watch and an Oris big crown pointer date on a black strap with a very handsome Bremont ALT1C/CR cream dial. This is a watch I like quite a bit, brown leather and deployant strap. Now he's looking for a daily wearable watch, likely stainless. He wants to stay under 10,000-ish, and he's considering the Rolex Explorer 2 Polar. So
Well, I wonder if we're talking about the
also
40 or
GMT,
42.
also GMT Master 2.
Okay,
So
so
current
40.
generation, and he's also considering a
Datejust
2 steel and white gold with a silver dial. But he also thinks for $14,400, he's on the wait list for the mostly stainless steel
Wow.
Skydweller.
Yeah. Well.
What do you go with? Of all these options, a lot of Rolex in there. Do you throw in
Yeah.
anything that's not a roller?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of options, especially under 10 grand. You have so many options. I would say right now, if you can get a stainless steel Skydweller in any type of reasonable amount of time, that's a watch to go for, even at 14.4.
Okay.
I mean, there's a value play there, I believe, and I'm sure that just like the stainless steel Daytona with the ceramic bezel, I feel like that watch is probably going to be trading over list for a relative amount of time after it is being shipped. But personally, I'd go with a Datejust 2 because that's actually next on my list. I like the smooth bezel over the fluted, but the fluted is nice, especially with that as an add-on to that collection. Because everything else you have here are sport watches.
Okay.
So having the Datejust 2, which is a versatile watch, you can wear that in any situation. But having something that would be a dressier watch would be, I think, the best option out of that if you can't get the Skydweller in any type of reasonable amount of time.
So you think the Skydweller, go for the complication, go for the sexiness of that blue dial.
It's got to be blue dial.
Blue dial. It is white roller source, so the ring command bezel is white gold, but this is, for the most part, a stainless steel play in the Skydweller model line. Now, you can also get it with a black dial, you can also get it with silver dial, but I think everyone who saw this watch at Basel World said go with the blue.
Go blue.
Honestly, I don't love the mass of it on a bracelet, but if you can find a way to get it on a Rolex strap, I would say very cool watch. Otherwise, consider that for $10,000, you can still get a lot of 1980s Rolex for your money. And I would go out and I would buy a 16550, see if you can get the cream dial for 10. If you can't, go with a 666 Sea Dweller. To me, those are watches that are no-loss watches. You buy them now, you'll sell them for what you paid or more 10 years from now.
I would say that based on his current collection, though, the 42 millimeter Skydweller might wear a little too large for you. So I'd say, if that's the case, the Explorer 2, if that's a 42 millimeter, which I'm assuming since these are all current model Rolexes, then that Explorer 2 and the Skydweller might wear a little large, and at which point the 41 or the GMT Master 2, which you can even get the Batman for under $10,000 right now, which is a really, really cool reference.
Okay.
I'd say that those are really good options. Again, go for what you like, number one. Number two, what fits on your wrist, like what you're going to like to wear. Because those two are not always the same.
Can you get a Sophia Loren? Can you get a first generation GMT Master 2, the 16760?
For under 10,000?
I think you can.
I think it's going to be right around there. Yeah, I mean, see, the problem, I don't really enjoy vintage Rolex as much as most people, just because I always feel like it's hard to, the provenance is not always there. So unless you're buying it from the original owner, which is almost impossible, even if they say the original owner, it's hard to tell unless their name's on their receipt.
Okay.
It's a tough. I have a tough time collecting those watches. Maybe down the road, my opinions will change. So when I'm always biased against going like that type of finish.
I'd say if you're going, I don't see 80s Rolex as being as dangerous as like 50s, 60s, and 70s, especially since they're relatively modern references and Rolex still services some of them.
Right.
But I will say that if you're going to buy a valuable transitional reference from the 80s, look for one with recent Rolex service papers from either Rolex North America, Rolex UK, or Rolex Geneva, one of the major service centers, because they would not send the watch back with aftermarket parts or adulterated combinations of parts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good point.
Jumping back to new watches, Raf has some wonderful graphics, but new watches from Vacheron Constantin. Now, Josh, this there's a little bit of clickbait in the title of this video. We took a while in getting to it, guys. Thank you for your patience. But the Gen 3 Overseas is now available in steel and yellow gold, both as the reference 5500 chronograph and also as the automatic 4500. Steel and gold on top of a controversial watch. So it's a controversial version of a controversial watch. What was the problem when they launched the Gen 3 Overseas last year, and what kind of a Shark Tank are they jumping into by launching two-tone now?
Okay, so the biggest issue with the watch is the price jump. They jumped almost 30% in there from the Gen 2, right? And they did make some improvements to the watch, but not enough, in my opinion, to justify such an increase in price, and we're seeing that. Two-tone sport watches tend to do really, really well, Tim.
That's a fact.
So, okay, so case in point, if you look for a pre-owned two-tone Daytona, you can find them at or right around the same price as a stainless steel Daytona. The reason being, two-tone sport watches don't sell.
And I think you can even say that in many cases, the most accessible point of entry to a Zenith-powered Daytona, which is kind of the modern-day emerging classic, the most accessible point of entry is actually a two-tone, 5-digit Zenith-powered Daytona.
That's exactly right. That's going to sell for less than a fully stainless watch. There are some exceptions, like two-tone GMTs and two-tone Submariners.
Yeah.
They sell all right, but they still sell at a larger discount from the original retail than obviously the stainless steel, because there's going to be a price jump. But they just don't work. I saw this watch. I like Vacheron as a brand. I like the Overseas. I like the Gen 2 better than the Gen 3, but the Gen 3 is really cool as well. We had a Gen 3 just time and date with a blue dial in here, and I was swapping the straps. Great experience with the watch.
Yeah.
Not a great value play. Two-tone, I don't even know what's the price increase to get to two-tone, do you know?
Honestly, prices haven't been released yet. This came out just in the last couple of hours.
I mean, so the regular time and date stainless steel
it's going to be more than steel.
Well, so it's steel right now is like $20,000.
Yeah, the chronograph starts at $21,000 on a bracelet.
Right.
So this is going to be a premium on top of a watch that's already a tough sell. Let's go over what we love and don't love about the Generation 3 Overseas. Josh, display case back and a Geneva hallmark manufacture movement.
We like it. It's good.
Quick change lug system and accessory straps and bracelets on the Bedrock
Like
model.
the Roadster. That's a great idea. It's fantastic.
Also, just a very wearable, tough high horology watch. 150 meters water resistance, anti-magnetic. It's tougher than both the Royal Oaks and the hardiest of the Nautiluses. So it's a legit sports watch.
Yes.
What we don't love.
Price point. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. That and the fact that Vacheron was always trying to play catch up to the Royal Oak and to the Nautilus, and they didn't really do anything to catch up on this in this model.
Or they caught up just as the bottom fell out of that market.
That's right.
Last year was the 20th anniversary of the Overseas. They went all in with some beautiful new references. Too expensive and poorly timed. Now, and let me just give you a little bit of perspective, guys, on where two-tone actually is right now. FH Statistics, that's the Fédération Horlogère. It's like the trade group for the Swiss watch industry. It's like the equivalent of getting social science statistics from state police, but it's the closest thing we have to the truth. And their own accounting is that for February, the most recent month for which we have stats, the new ones for March are coming out this Sunday, so eyes peeled, we'll have a report for that Monday. But in February, two-tone watches globally were down 24.9%, Swiss watches. And it's important to note that gold and steel individually were down 19% and about 5.5% respectively. So gold and steel right now are both a better play than the two combined.
I mean, crazy. It's crazy. The thing that's really, really remarkable is that if you look at stainless steel Nautiluses right now and the Royal Oak, they're going crazy. Like they're getting stronger and stronger in the resale market. I mean, I'm seeing Nautiluses go for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 over list right now for a 5711. The watch is ungettable, and the Royal Oak, with what Audemars been doing, Francois been doing in Switzerland, it's a watch that it's not easy to find from a dealer, not easy to find from the boutiques, and pre-owned are getting stronger and stronger every day. Whereas the Vacheron's just not riding that wave.
Let me just ask you anecdotally, it's 20 years of the Aquanaut this year. Are you seeing the Aquanaut being strong? Is it anywhere near where the Nautilus is?
Well, put it this way. We see that the 5167 is trading within reach of retail right now as a pre-owned watch in good condition. So, yeah, the Aquanaut, which it's not always been my favorite reference, but every time I see one, it tends to get a little bit. I tend to like it a little bit more. We just had a customer bring one in for sale this week, and honestly, it's so strong we couldn't buy it. He was looking for more money than what would we be willing to pay for it, and maybe in a month or two, maybe we'd be paying what he's looking for. We obviously have to speculate on these things. So, but the watch is really, really strong. I mean, Patek always does it right. Okay, so, but their stainless steel sport watches are just out of control in regards to how strong the market is right now.
Okay, now a question from Stephen Murphy, who's asking me, Tim, can you pull off a Audemars Piguet Royal Oak ultra thin the Jumbo 15202 on your wrist. My wrist, as you guys may know from the wrist reviews, which you can now see on Watch You Want Watch Reviews, my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. I find every AP on a bracelet, every Royal Oak on a bracelet wears bigger. Like we've got the 41 millimeter chrono on the table tonight. This watch wears closer to the offshore than it wears to the 39 millimeter.
You want to compare? This is a 45 millimeter.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a 41.
I'll show you the size of this. I will say the 41 that you see here is too big for my wrist. It's too big. It doesn't wear organically. The bracelet's not completely flexible. You can't pull it straight down. You're looking at it right next to a 45 millimeter radiometer. You can see this watch is almost the size of a 45 millimeter.
On my wrist, this wears larger. Here.
So, but the bottom line is on the Jumbo, the 15202, yes, I can wear it. I'll say this. Anecdotally, having experienced many versions of the 39 millimeter ultra thin Royal Oak dating back to the original reference, I think a 15 centimeter wrist is probably the lower limit without putting undue stress on the links of the bracelet because it does want to flare. The case is wide, the bracelet is integrated into the lugs, and so you'll never be able to just, do what you can do with a strap and pull it straight down around a smaller wrist. I think that if you're going to go the Royal Oak route and you want to consider a Royal Oak automatics, look at the 3637s. Look at the 14790 that ran from the early 80s through about 2006. Look at the awesome annual calendar. A lot of people don't know about the Royal Oak annual calendar in 36 millimeters. And of course, consider the Jumbo at 39 millimeters. These are great watches, but I will say that on my wrist, it begins and ends with the 39 and the 36, 37 reference. Second they get bigger than that, I can't wear them comfortably, and I like to wear my watches securely. If you're the type who has the watch, flipping over on your wrist, loosey-goosey, maybe you can wear a bigger watch, you can wear a bigger Royal Oak, but it just gets to the point where it's awkward and not comfortable, and then it's not fun. Okay, so
It's all about having fun.
it is all about having fun. And speaking of fun, I like blue dials. I find blue dials fun.
Deal. It's blue dials.
Boom.
For life.
So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm horribly awkward. I'm never gonna be the guy. I'm never gonna be the guy who jumps into your pickup basketball game, slams it, walks off the hero. I'm gonna fall on my face when I try to take the first shot. But watches, I know.
But you're going to outbike anybody in the room. So
That's a fact. That's a fact. Sports that involve tremendous amounts of steroids. I've got a chance. So Tanner asks, huge fan of your content and avid viewer of the Watch You Want channel. I noticed in your most recent stream with Fed, this was Wednesday, we were talking what watch to buy next. We mentioned the Quai d'Lille, and I said there was a gorgeous blue dial variant of this watch. I can't find any information on the blue dial online. Would love to see and read about it. Well, Raf's got a picture of it for you that I stole off of Vacheron's Instagram. There is no official record of it other than the picture that I'm throwing up here, but it is something that Vacheron has teased on the steel Quai d'Lille. It's coming, and it's going to join the black dial and the white/silver dial. So the second part of Tanner's question is, I'd love your take on the model of a whole, value and its price point, and thoughts on it being someone's first high-end Swiss watch. Okay, Josh, what do you think of the watch as a $14,900 steel Vacheron on a strap?
So we've actually had the watch bought and sold recently, I think, with the black dial, and it actually performed pretty well in comparison to the other models in the brand, which is kind of a weird idea because we always talk about how stainless steel sport models are the ones that hold the most value. But I think at a $14,000 retail, and the complication we're looking at is what?
It's very basic, jump date.
It's okay, jump date, but still, it's cool.
Yeah.
Right? And the dial looks different. It looks more complicated than it is.
Yeah, it does. It has a fixed index, and the date wheel is completely open, so it
right.
just moves past the triangle.
Exactly. So I think that the price point is actually pretty affordable for what you're getting because you're getting somewhat of a halfway between a sporty, it's basically a sporty dress watch, right, you would say?
I would say it's a sporty dress watch because with a 3 ATM water resistant, it's not a sports watch.
No, definitely not. Definitely not a sport watch, but the look of it looks somewhat sporty. It's not going to be like some sort of ultra thin here or there, right? So I can't remember exactly what we sold it for, but I do remember that it was a strong price. I felt like when I saw how much we paid for it, we overpaid for it until we saw that we sold it. And then I said, okay, well, looks like we did okay.
Okay. So I would say, honestly, in a market where steel is real, and honestly, the watch is reasonably priced at about $14,900, it's interesting that Tanner brings up that watch because it's almost the same price as the steel Skydweller.
Yes.
And I'll also say this. It's it's a big watch. It's over 50 millimeters lug to lug. When you put it on your wrist, it makes itself known, and not every wrist is going to be able to wear it well. So with the Quai d'Lille, I always tell people, try before you buy, and I think that goes for the Sky Dweller too, because it doesn't wear like a 42, and you know the Quai d'Lille doesn't wear like a 41. Both of those watches are a lot bigger on the wrist than the bare measurements suggest.
The shape of the Quai d'Lille, because it's going to give you, like, there's much more girth there.
Yeah, it's got those lugs that fight your wrist. It's not the one that's going to work with you. So make sure you're not marginal for the size of the case. Otherwise, I like it a lot. I really like the 5100 in-house reference that's in there. You're not getting the same standard of finish that you will on Vacheron. You know, Vacherons of higher price points. I'll be honest. They found ways of decontenting the movement without losing the Geneva hallmark. You're going to see things like a tungsten rotor. You're going to see generally less Baroque finish on the bridges, but it is still Geneva hallmark finish. There's an honesty to it, even if maybe the materials and the presentation aren't quite as noble. It's a lot of watch for the money, and I like it. But I will say this. Consider your options, pre-owned and new. Once you're talking $15,000, horizons open, and you've got a lot of different avenues. So do your research and fall in love with a couple of watches. Finally, try before you buy.
Yeah, I'd say so. Actually, as a note, I'm being offered on a trade a rose gold Quai d'Lille. So
Okay.
you might see that on the website in the next month or so.
And you know for a fact that if it comes here, it's going to be on Watch You Want Watch Reviews.
Yeah.
Subscribe. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to sign off by answering a question from one of my fellow Timothys. I'm Tim M. He's Tim C. And he's asking, do I believe that the Seiko, Grand Seiko, rebranding of this year from Basel World 2017 will have a bearing on the equity of the company? I'm going to say, and by the way, Ben cleared it, and yes, you can wear the Deep Sea with a business suit or business casual, just not a tuxedo. But Tim
Wear
C.
it with a tuxedo, why not? Go for it.
Why not? You can wear anything with anything
You
today.
can do whatever the hell you want, man. It's America.
Or maybe it's not in America.
Okay, well, it's wherever you're at. It can be America, too.
You're on this globe. Okay, guys, so Tim C., I don't think it's going to make an immediate impact on Grand Seiko watches produced previously because, A, the brand doesn't have a high profile, so I don't want to say they have nowhere to go but up in the United States at least, but in Europe and the United States, they still have a lot of brand building to do. I do say that going forward, it could help them build the brand on maybe a more solid foundation, but as long as they have the Seiko name in there, they're going to confuse people. A lot of people see Seiko and they think a sub $200 or even sub $100 watch, and I think because of that, it's going to be difficult. Even Toyota, with its marketing muscle, its quality control beyond anything that was being done in the U.S. or Europe in the 90s, with an impeccable record of product development, decided they needed Lexus to sell a premium product. And recently, Hyundai decided it needed Genesis. And what I see with Grand Seiko is a challenge against the headwinds of the Seiko half of their corporate name. Yes, they've removed Seiko as a standalone from the dial, but not from the name and not from the brand. I think those of us who know the quality of what they offer will continue to regard the brand, but they're going to have to rely on us as their foot soldiers in the market to spread the word by mouth, and that's going to be a slow process that's going to be more dependent on the quality they provide to us, the true believers, than on the marketing efforts. Because let's face it, they're Grand, but still Seiko.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of see it with the car analogy, Honda to Acura. It's still like they're too close, and Acura has been fighting for I don't know how many years to try to become more of a luxury brand. It's not happening. So you can kind of see the good side of it with Lexus to Toyota, but then you see the tough side to it too, from Acura to Honda.
I would have said, and some of you have sounded off in the chat box, the way to go would have been to simply rebrand it Crador. With the introduction of last year's $50,000 8-day spring drive, which looked like a Crador-type watch in the Grand Seiko catalog, they'd effectively transferred over Crador's greatest asset, which was impeccable finish that's on a Swiss level, that's on a Dufour level, that gives up nothing to no one and makes no apologies. I feel like that would have been the way to go with Grand Seiko, at least in markets where Seiko as a low-end brand is so firmly entrenched. But hey, they have plenty of room to grow, and like I said, let's be the evangelists for the brand. Those of you who believe in it, tell a friend. So Josh,
You believe in it?
I believe in it big time. Do you believe in it?
I believe that you believe in it.
That's good enough for me. I'm the boss. I'm Tim. He's Josh. He is Raph, and he's been a hero. He's Federico. This is Watch You Want. Have a great weekend, and thanks for logging on.
See ya.